start the recording.
With a cough. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to United Neighborhoods Neighborhood Council Planning and Zoning Committee meeting for Wednesday today, February 2nd. It's 7:04. First off, we've been starting these meetings for several months now just to notify that because the COVID emergency order ended in September, we are now in a month-by-month extension of that order, and basically saying that we are going to continue to meet virtually, which we're doing now. So because it basically busts the Brown Act, we have to just notify that we're ad hoc emergency situation. We can't meet in person. So that's that announcement.
John, should I share the screen so everyone can see the
Sure.
agenda?
Sure. Sorry, I really shouldn't eat and talk at the same time. Okay. So that's the first item on the agenda, to continue holding meetings virtually. Second is welcome and call to order. So generally in this meeting, we're a little smaller, a little less formal. We go around the room, and if you wish to introduce yourselves, and if you're a board member, please state so. I'm John Arnold. I am a representative of Region 6 in Jefferson Park, the chairperson of the Planning and Zoning Committee. And I'm here with Laura Myers, who is?
Me, Laura Myers, and I live in Angeles Vista, and I'm a member of the governing board elected at large, and I am its current president.
Thanks, Laura. Chris?
Hi, I'm Chris Carlson. I'm a member of the UNNC governing board. I'm the area rep for Region 4, which is Kinney Heights and Western Heights. And I am also the co-chair on the oil subcommittee with Steve Peckman.
Which is a subcommittee of this
Subcommittee, yes.
Taylor?
I am Taylor Fife. I am also an elected board member at large, and I'm the chair of another subcommittee of this committee, the Mobility and Transportation Subcommittee.
Great, thanks, Taylor. Carlos?
Hi guys, UNNC member at large in West Adams.
Thanks, Teresa.
Oh, thanks, John. Good morning. Good evening, everybody. I'm Teresa Masonette. I am also a board member, and I represent the West Adams Avenue.
Great, Audrey.
My name is Audrey Arlington, and I'm a resident of Jefferson Park.
And Donna? We're just doing introductions, Donna. Donna is in the process of unmuting. Okay, and then we have a guest, Jack G. If you want to introduce yourself, we are related to a case that we have on that we're seeing today.
My name is Jack Gushen. I'm the owner and the chef at the Sino restaurant located at 3224 Venice Boulevard.
Great, thanks for coming.
Thank you so much.
And so we have an agenda on the screen at the moment, and if everyone can review it, and if anyone approves of it and wants to make a motion to approve the agenda as we have had it, or make any changes.
We should say that anyone who's any stakeholder participating in this meeting is considered a member of the committee for this evening and may make a motion and may vote, and obviously can fully participate in terms of raising hand and commentary.
And we do that as on a honor system, that anyone who's participating is a stakeholder in the UNNC per our bylaws.
And we're saying this because it would be more appropriate if someone other than John and Laura made the motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
I second.
Great, thanks. Taylor moves, Chris seconds. So that said, we can just raise a hands or raise your hands virtually with the chat tools. Everyone votes to approve the agenda as presented. Okay, any dissent? Okay, thanks very much. So agenda is approved.
So I'm going to stop the share for now. I can pull it back up, or John can as we need to for going forward.
Great. So next, with all public meetings, we have a few minutes at the beginning for public comment for anything that is not on the agenda that
Demetrius went
anyone
away.
wishes to speak about.
Okay, Demetrius, I lost it. What happened?
Oh,
Yeah,
we
you're
can-
here,
we can
Chris.
hear you. We can
Yeah,
hear you.
but I lost you guys. Sorry, just a minute.
That logo on the bottom
Okay.
brings everyone back.
I had a public comment.
Please, Chris.
I just wanted to make sure the community was aware that one of our young local artists, Annie Pendergrass, has a show at Shoot the Lobster right on Washington Boulevard. And it is her first solo show in right here in this area, although she's shown at the Getty and other group shows. But to the gallery's delight, the entire show sold out before it even opened. And so it's there until I think February 18th. And if anyone is out on Washington Boulevard, I encourage them to check out one of our local artists and one of our local businesses.
When you say sold out, that mean we can't go or we can't buy?
No, you can go, but all the paintings sold,
Great.
all of them, but literally before the show opened. So it was one of the most successful. The gallery said they've had shows where they sold things on the opening night, but they've never had an entire show sell out prior to the actual show opening. It had been listed up on social media, and the entire show sold. But Annie's work will be up till I think the 18th of February. So if you've never been to the gallery or checked out some of our other local galleries, it's very convenient to underground. It's like about, I think, a block and a half from the Underground Museum. So you can have a wonderful little art walk if you like. But it's one of our young up and coming artists who actually, her studio is in West Adams.
Great. Chris, if you could, if you have a second during the meeting, just post that information in the chat.
I will. Thank you.
Any other public comment for anything that's not on the agenda this evening? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to item number 4, which is our first case, which Jack.
Yeah. So I'll introduce it a little bit, John. And then
This is a request for an ABC, which is a liquor license for a restaurant in the neighborhood, and Laura's going to introduce it.
right, it's a request to transfer the existing liquor license that was already assigned to this physical restaurant building, but it was a prior operator of a prior restaurant, a taqueria, and the owner of that restaurant actually unfortunately passed away. So our applicant, Jack, will tell us a little bit more, but it's he purchased the as far as I know, but he'll tell us better, the property, the restaurant, and the license, but there still is a thing you have to do to transfer a license. Council District 10 had asked me to schedule this for UNNC so that we could vote, one way or another on a position to recommend to the council office, because they in turn need to write a letter to the ABC.
So before we hear from the applicant, can you so this is a formality for a license that already exists because it's a change of ownership?
It's a new restaurant. So I think it's technical, but I think it's a little more than a formality. It's a different person, a different named restaurant, but it's an actual different restaurant. There is a conditional use permit for alcohol, beer and wine sales at this site that does move forward with the land. So there's there's always two different things. The city planning department land use has a conditional use permit process that results in a CUB rather than a CUP. The CUB moves forward regardless of who the owner is, but the state, I think, alcohol beverage control, ABC, that license has to officially transfer or something. which maybe Jack understands and can explain to us, or maybe he doesn't really know either, but he's going to tell us what the situation is.
Okay, Jack, what you have the floor. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your new establishment? We're familiar with the site because we just voted on it just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, crazy. My name is Jack Gushin. I've been a chef for about 17 years. I was at the chef at the Four Seasons Beverly Hills. And then right when COVID hit, I got laid off. So I decided to open this place. This is actually a lease. I got this place because it had the original beer and wine. And from the real estate agent, she said we can transfer it over to the new leaser, which would be me. And that's why I got the spot, just because of the beer and wine. It did need work. The location didn't need a nice facelift. So we did a nice paint, got a new kitchen. Other than that, the food is modern Latin. We have a Californian fusion, a very nice, very upscale. It's a nice addition to the area.
So we usually generally interested to know what your vibe is. Is it indoor seating, outdoor seating, both? Which is it takeout mostly or sit down?
It's an indoor seating, and we did place some chairs outside because of the COVID situation, so we could get more clientele. We do have an indoor seating about 30. It is an indoor. It is full service. We do have servers and just hoping for the beer and wine to kick in as well.
Are you serving bottles of wine, glasses of wine, all the above?
Bottles, yes, all the above. We're thinking about just starting off with at least 4 or 5 bottles of wine, 2 white, 2 red, and then 1 sparkling, and then about 5 different types of beer.
And then this question will probably come up. Not available for takeout, so I can't come in, buy a bottle of wine.
No, it'll be served as is an establishment with the meal.
So I know I've already asked some questions, so let's open up to further questions from anybody who has them in the community. Anybody?
Huh.
I have another question. How is this different from the approach that the previous? I never had been to the Q Taqueria. How would you describe your situation being different or the same as what was there before?
From what I know, the difference is the quality we use. We use prime grade steaks. It's, how can I say?
It's okay.
Well, Jack, do you want to just tell them your menu?
Of course, I would love to. Yeah. It's what it is basically we charge the tacos, for example, prices as $7 to $8, $9 per taco. The tacos, the tortillas, we make it in-house. Everything is imported. For example, our tortilla mix is from Peru. We use hanger steak, prime grade. Our vendors are local. They're Premier Meats. We use US LA specialty for our produce. It's locally sourced. We try to stay sustainable as well. And for example, like everything we do, 90% of the product is in-house made. We try to make everything from scratch. I think that would be one of our big differences. From when I came into the restaurant, a lot of things were store-bought, like a lot of cans, a lot of pickle jars. We make everything in-house.
So it's not, and Don, I see your hand, but so it sounds like I'm going to use a word maybe you didn't want to use, word you wanted to use because you're being polite. But it sounds like you're an upgrade.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Donna.
I'm sorry, maybe I missed, where is the restaurant located?
We're located at 3224 Venice Boulevard, right on corner of 3rd Avenue and Venice.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions from the community?
Taylor has his hand up.
Selfishly, how are your vegetarian options?
We have 1 vegan, 4 vegetarians, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
great.
Pretty good. Yeah.
I have that selfish question too, Taylor. So, Chris.
Both my husband and I have had dinner there, and I actually had all the vegetarian items, and they were delicious.
Thank you.
The service was exceptional, and you couldn't have had I mean, the kitchen was very warm, came out, greeted everyone, and it was a lovely evening. We're delighted to have you in the community.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Great, Teresa.
Thanks, John. I too have eaten there several times, and the food was delicious, and it was a wonderful experience. My question is to you, though, John. Because I have eaten there, and I guess Chris has too, and I know Laura has. Are we allowed to vote, or do we have to recuse ourselves?
Oh, no, there's no conflict of interest there. If eating something you like is a conflict of interest, we all have to recuse ourselves from life. So no, I think if you were an investor there, that might be something different. And I wouldn't call patronizing a restaurant an investment. So because you're a transaction. So I would say no.
Okay, thanks.
In my limited legal experience. Any other questions?
Audrey.
Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute, Audrey. You're on mute. Wait, you're on mute.
There we go. Sorry.
Start over.
I just wanted to share that I'd also eaten here a number of times. One of the things I really appreciate about the location is that much of the seating is outdoors, and the greeters podium is outdoors, and you don't, in fact, ever have to go inside a building to dine here. The food is great. I think the restaurant is a wonderful addition to the neighborhood. It has a small parking lot, which is a real plus. And I'm very much supportive of this beer and wine license being transferred.
Boy, I'm behind the curve here. I haven't been up there yet. So any other?
So John, just wait, please, till after tomorrow night, then.
Yes, I won't create a conflict. Any other questions, comments? I think we can go right into a motion. Does anyone have a motion at their pleasure? Seeing that there's no more discussion.
Sure, I move to support the transfer of the beer and wine license to Destina.
I can second that.
Audrey's been a second.
I'm writing it down.
Any further discussions, questions, additions about the motion or its content? Okay, hearing none, I would move to take a vote. So the motion is to support the transfer of the existing alcohol license from the previous restaurant to the current restaurant. And
yeah, John, I think we will amend that to recommend that UNNC governing board supports. I always forget that. Whereas the committee.
It's a two-step process. We just recommend the board. Tomorrow will actually vote. So, but they usually take our recommendation to heart. So, so that said, we're recommending to the governing board to approve or support this transfer. So let's take a vote. You can either raise your hand, your real hand and screen, or a virtual hand. All those in favor? Okay, thank you. And if you can lower down your hands. Anyone opposed? Okay, seeing.
So Audrey, your hand is still up. I'm guessing it's been up for a while.
Yeah, I'm gonna lower it for you, Audrey. There we go. Seeing none, that passes, and we will write that as a recommendation for the governing board tomorrow.
Yeah. So Jack, we do have this on tomorrow night's agenda. It is not nearly as early in the agenda as this is. We'll talk tomorrow, it may be that what we'll want to do is text you, with a 20-minute advance or something. But it's later in the agenda and it could well be after 9 o'clock.
Great. Thank you. I
Great.
Thank
appreciate
you.
you guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, moving on to item number 5, which is the one that I only got half done.
Oh, I got that one done. I think it's the other one you only got half
Oh, it's
done.
the other one. Yes, you're right, the other one. So our last meeting, we talked about council file number 220029, which is making property owners accountable if their properties are vacant. And the city has the motion includes some penalizations, some proactive requirements to make buildings more fireproof with sprinklers. And also, I can't remember what else was. Oh, there's a motion right there. Thank you.
Yeah. So first I'm going to post the motion and then I'll post the draft, our draft.
Which I have augmented, so I haven't.
Oh, well, you'll post that then. Okay, so this was the original motion from the city. Does everyone want to read this? Probably we should.
It's basically to avoid properties becoming nuisances and becoming fire hazards and nuisances and loss of property, loss of historic resources, and also making owners accountable, including paying for, if a fire department's called out and they have to fight the fire, that they pay for those costs to fight the fire and any damage that occurs to neighboring properties, let alone their own property.
Okay, so I'm going to stop the share, and you said you're going to share the revised revision.
Yep, it's very close. It
doesn't matter. If you've ever known me, you know that I don't mind being edited.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. So can everyone see this? Yes?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So this is our proposed CIS. And as an introduction, basically saying our stance and our approach to it. Should I read this or should we all read it on our own?
Well, no one's really had the opportunity to read it online, so you should probably read it out loud.
Sure. So vacant buildings have become an all too familiar nuisance throughout Los Angeles. In UNNC's neighborhoods, we have buildings, often historic, being abandoned by neglectful owners and developers waiting for project approvals. Unsecured empty buildings are a hazard for the entire community. In recent years, 4 abandoned local residents have burned with severe damage, including adjacent structures. 2 of those burned buildings have been demolished. All were intact historic houses, 2 with designation. The United Neighborhoods of Historic Arlington Heights, West Adams, Jefferson Park communities, Neighborhood Council, UNNC, therefore supports with amendments Council File 220029. Owners of the property should be impelled to protect the integrity of their property and to not create hazards such as fires, structural damage, and unauthorized occupancy that affect the health, safety, and welfare of the community. If new development is proposed, owners should be obligated to keep buildings occupied until all project entitlements have been approved and final permits issued. UNNC stakeholders expect owners to, quote, keep the lights on, the water running, heat on in winter, and have an authorized occupant on premises. UNNC suggests the following changes. So we support the original with the following changes. That vacant and vacancy be specifically defined. For example, define the vacancy status of a building if an owner is rehabilitating an existing building with permits and active work. 2, permits are required for a building and permits are required for a building to become and remain vacant. So you need to get a permit if your building is going to be vacant. That the city council clarify any differing standards for residential versus commercial buildings. 4, that the proposed 180-day grace period, which is in the motion period, be changed to be much shorter so vacant buildings do not have an opportunity to become a nuisance. And 5, that any regulation foster prevention of abandonment, hazards, fires, and demolition by neglect. and not only consider punishment and penalties after the fact. And that is 1,946 characters.
Okay, well, but that's under 2,000, so it works.
So this was all written based on input from our last meeting. So the ideas we got from us, and again, this supports the original council file. We're just wanting to add some smart observations to it. Any questions or comments?
Hi guys, this is Carlos. Everything is great. It's just I guess the third paragraph. And I don't know. I'm just feeling a particular way about it as far as it being occupied, right? I know what we're trying to accomplish, and it makes sense, right? But I really wish I had an answer to make a recommendation on how how to deal with that. But yeah, it's just something about that piece there, right? That just doesn't settle right with me. I just wanted to kind of put that out there.
So,
But
Carlos,
I'll support you guys.
if I can read between the lines of what you're saying, that you're thinking that maybe there is a alternative to occupancy, and that might be some kind of protection or some other way that is equivalent to being occupied.
Yeah, you're spot on, John. You're absolutely spot on. I mean, because for me, when I hear occupancy, the language is a little bit different for me. Whereas occupancy means, hey, you know, the choice is no longer the owners to stay, right? You can't just, you know, displace folks because you need to work on it.
Yeah.
So, but you get my point. You know exactly where I was trying to get at.
Yeah. So occupied is very clear. That means someone's in it. So fully protected, you can see that being bent. So I think it's finding those words that say that's an equivalency of permanent 24/7 protection. Laura.
Yeah, I mean, we've been toying with using the word, caretaker, but I think we ended up on authorized occupant. Maybe we should just say, I mean, again, we're stuck with 2,000 characters, letters and, characters and spaces, because after that, it cuts it off. But, so we might still have to finesse, but maybe you say authorized occupant / caretaker. Meaning, in other words, Carlos, we're not necessarily trying to keep tenants, although I would like to keep tenants, but to your point, it's not about forcing someone to stay in the rental business. It's about
Right. Like I said,
yeah. So maybe if it was occupant / caretaker, the implication would be stronger that we're not talking about renters necessarily.
Right. And you guys already know where my head is, but I'm in total support of it. Like I said, we've got these problems, right, where they'll just leave them abandoned. But to me, when I hear occupant, renter, that language changed totally. And I immediately started going into a small mom and pop, owners, perspective, and I think that's where I kind of get myself messed up at. So
I agree. I can see that. Taylor.
Yeah. I guess I have a similar concern. So this is, I don't know that much about the vacancy laws. I like that you asked them to define vacant and vacancy. So I think I'm struggling with that. What that means. I am weird, so I pay a lot of attention to vacancy rates as the census defines them. The U.S. Census, you are probably aware, has like very good data on vacancies, and according to the census, about a third of all vacancies are just that the buildings are being prepared for sale or are for sale. About a third are vacation homes, and then the other third are other, the biggest of which is probate. So I'm just thinking that the biggest categories are a vacation home or a building in probate. Seems very weird to force somebody to like rent out a building in probate, if that's even possible, or to rent out their vacation home while they try and get it built for something else. So
So
the
that's-
same concern as Carlos, that I just don't quite know what we're telling people to do here with their vacant properties.
So that would be, I think, maybe in the definition of that a vacation home is not vacant, and that, you know, how many days it is, so that might be the definition. I think the next hand I saw was Audrey.
Yes, I wanted to ask, do I understand this correctly, that this applies only to residential buildings and not to non-residential buildings?
This is where we wanted to clarify where the standards are for residential versus commercial, but it's for all buildings.
So this is strictly residential versus
No.
commercial buildings?
No, the city council didn't differentiate, but we want them to differentiate if there's any a different standard for residential versus commercial, because it wasn't clear about what the intent was there, and if there's a different intent for residential versus commercial.
Right, because if it were commercial, you couldn't be talking about insisting on having the building occupied. It wouldn't make any sense in any event, and that language, Laura, that you had proposed of protection would be sufficient to that purpose, I would think.
Yeah, you're right, because obviously an office building that has that's vacant for market purposes, just because it can't lease, is that a vacant building? What does the owner have to do? And
Well, people maintain buildings vacant for any variety of reasons, lots and lots of reasons. But the primary thrust of this, I think, ought to be to protect the status of the building from invasion by anyone, so that the building isn't subject to being burned or nefarious activities going on in it.
So I've added, so authorized occupant, caretaker, or active security. You know, that solves that, because that would kind of make a bigger umbrella of protection. But, you know, active security, what does that mean? That once a day drive by? I wonder if we get rid of this. And I like the anecdotal aspect of the keep the lights on, the water running. It kind of is memorable. But I wonder if we use those precious characters to define this idea of protection.
Well, maybe at least take out heat on in the winter because we are running out of space. I mean, it's impossible to have a caretaker if you don't have water and lights. You know, basically electricity and light, water. Donna had her hand up, and then I have a suggestion.
Maybe Carlos, like myself, was thinking that an empty space, as long as it's secured and maintained, can stay empty. And I don't necessarily want to put a caretaker in every space that I don't want to rent. But if as long as it's being secured and maintained, that's different than abandoned.
Yep. I like the word maintained, secured and maintained, because that is fairly objective, because if things are falling apart, it's not being maintained. So,
Yeah. So John, my suggestion, with my hand up, was that very first, so we start this out by saying vacant. And that may be my mistake. Maybe it should be maybe the first word should just be abandoned buildings instead of vacant buildings, because abandoned has a different connotation.
yeah.
Because once it's abandoned, then all the rest of this could happen. If it's just vacant, maybe not so much.
But vacant couldn't lead to
Constitutes abandonment.
No, I'm just saying, right, how I mean, this is what I wrote. That first, no. I wrote oh, I see. I wrote vacant buildings have become an all too familiar nuisance, but it's not the vacant buildings, it's the abandoned buildings have become an all too familiar nuisance. So you just take out the word vacant from there. And start it, the first word could be abandoned buildings. And then we can use a thesaurus on the second sentence where we have abandoned again, find another word for abandoned there. But I mean, in other words, if the trigger word is vacant, we should eliminate that as the very first word.
I think the wording you could do is being neglected by owners and developers.
maybe.
Abandoned is a very clear word.
Yeah,
Vacant-
that's what.
vacant is-
I'm
is
just
the word,
saying,
right?
as a writer, the first 7 words are the things people read, and then they may or may not read the rest of it. So if for us, if in this conversation, the triggering wrong word is the word vacant, don't make it the first word. I mean, you can reference vacant later. And Audrey, the specific answer is that what triggered this motion, and noting that there have been similar motions for 20 years that have never gone anywhere, but we haven't had nearly the number of fires and destruction, and the amount of destruction as we have seen in the last 2 years before. But what triggered the motion was a major fire that may have been caused some injuries at a abandoned commercial building in the valley.
Well, I understand all that. My concern is that there aren't criteria for what constitutes abandoned, whereas vacant is pretty well self-explanatory. I mean, what
True.
constitutes abandoned is somebody not paying the property taxes, or if they've simply ignored the building and it's vacant, but they are still paying the property taxes, what constitutes abandonment.
Yeah.
Whereas I think that the word vacant is pretty clear, and it doesn't go to, it doesn't require
Okay.
definition of the circumstances of its status. It's just simply vacant.
I agree with you,
Sure.
Audrey. I agree with you, Audrey, because I
Okay.
can love my building and have it vacant and pay its taxes and mow its lawn and do whatever. It's vacant, but it's not abandoned. I certainly haven't abandoned it. I'm just not living in it.
Right,
So,
well, it's vacant. My concern is that it might say vacant and unsecured.
oh, okay.
And that way you don't have to address an owner's intention or any other status about it other than it's vacant and it's not secured.
So then we vacant, unsecured, and unmaintained.
And unmaintained.
Okay.
And I also have a concern about any requirement to require that the utilities be running. Some people want to mothball a building for God knows what reason. And I can think of a number of them. But it doesn't mean that they're cause for concern, particularly as long as they are maintained and secured. Why would anyone be required to pay utilities if, for whatever reason, they had no use for this building but wanted to hang on to it in any event until such time as they decided they wanted to do something else with it? I think the issue is the security of the building. I mean, it is it's memorable language, I agree, but literally to keep the lights on and the water running, I don't know that that's something I would like to see building owners required to do. It doesn't address the primary issue, which is that a building is unsecured and vulnerable to being invaded and burned, et cetera, or criminal activity going on there. To me, this is something that should be focused on the physical security of the building. I agree.
What's that?
Okay, well, I have my hand up again.
Oh, Laura.
Whenever. So Audrey, I feel that the problem is that it doesn't work. We've sat through now, again, through the last couple of years, one situation after another, they have not all resulted in fires, where within a week of the time that the building doesn't have any evidence of life, meaning no lights, we have squatters in them. Even the city-owned house next to the South Seas house, right, what we call the Isidore House,
Right.
has over and over and over and over again now, people breaking in. And I mean, Donna's here, Teresa's here. People are going so far as to crawl underneath into the crawl space and have made a hole up through a closet to enter into the building, the house. And that, I mean, you probably saw on Facebook a lot of conversation about that house on Brighton. So it's a little just outside our footprint, the 2600, I want to say 2624 or something, Brighton. But anyway, the house on Brighton, and all the windows were, quote, stolen. Maybe they were, maybe the owner really purposely got rid of them, but it's a, a historic house. Unless there's some teeth somewhere, and we're trying also not to be punitive, instead create prevention measures. This is just going to keep happening. But in terms of fires, you have the fire right down the street from you, actually, on 31st Street. Well, maybe on the other side of Arlington. There's the house on 24th Street that is no more. The house on Wilton Place that is no more, and had not just a fire, it had a fire and then another fire and then a third fire and then a fourth fire, and the squatters stayed in the house, what was left of it, until they finally by accident destroyed it completely after the fourth fire.
Were these properties physically secured? I think they
Well,
were.
no,
correct?
well, it depends what you define secure, because the owner was saying, well, we've got a big fence around it. No, obviously, but it's really, really hard to secure it. I mean, that was the point I'm making about the Isidore house.
Mhm.
When people are going underneath a house and carving a hole in the floors to get inside, it's really hard to secure.
Pretty extreme.
Yeah, it's very extreme. And yeah, so and then conversely, on my block, a house, that was a probate, and it was sold. And the very first thing the new buyer owner did was install somebody to live there. I mean, it was sort of camping out at first because the place was miserable, and it's gotten a little bit better, but there was always a light on because there was a guy with a truck who was living there as best he could. And now it's better because they're doing work. And I mean, I don't know what work they're doing. I don't know if they're flipping. I mean, I don't know what they're doing, but but it was the right way to approach it, because there also had been homeless people living in the backyard. So how do we create something that's not an incentive, but a preventive rather than a after the fact? Because if you're a developer and you're facing even a $20,000 fine for letting a building fall into flames, that's a very small portion of the amount of money you're going to be spending to build a new project. So
it's not a concern of yours in that event, but I wonder if having a standard that speaks to securing property sufficient to prevent invasion, and then offer possibilities such as keeping the utilities on, keeping a resident caretaker, et cetera, to provide a whole menu of ways in which property could be secured, but that the standard itself would be sufficient security to prevent invasion of the property.
Okay,
Sure.
so we have a number of hands up. Chris, you were next.
I agree with Audrey. I think it's about being responsible to secure the property from illegal egress. And I think we can find language that focuses on that. That should be the responsibility of any land owner. Egress. I do caution us from using the house on 24th Street as an example of this, because it was not unmaintained. It was not necessarily abandoned. And there may have been other issues on that one. I mean, there seemed to be so I just would not use that as an example, because I think that doesn't quite fall in the goalpost for this. But
Wait.
Go back.
Or what we received. So I remind everybody, we aren't legislating here. We're offering ideas. So if they're imperfect or not complete, we're just offering ideas from our perspective. So it's not our job or obligation to hammer out the whole thing. So next up, Carlos has his hand up.
Hey, John. Basically, what I wanted to do was just two things. One is, if we're going back to the drawing board, right? I would certainly love to, work with you on it, to try to get that language together because I haven't, in my head. I think we all do in our heads of what we want in it, but just kind of hashing it all out is one thing. And then the other piece is back to Chris's point. I'm looking at it from a more broad scale, right? One of the reasons I even joined the board was, my perspective on those folks that don't have a voice, right? Which is those retired, you know, landowners, right? That they don't have a bunch of money, that sort of thing, but they still need to be responsible. So how does that play in with not just big developers, but just folks that kind of inherited stuff or folks that work 70 years of their lives in the service and they're retired and they find themselves in this situation. So that's what I want to kind of bring in to contribute to see, what language we can bring in and kind of, get this done. Because Laura, thank you. I mean, like I said, obviously it's been brought up quite a bit and we haven't really gotten anywhere even way before these conversations. But I want to see what I can do to contribute to that to see if we can get some traction on that.
Okay, Teresa, you're hearing. Thanks, Carlos. Teresa?
Thank you, John. First, I want to say that I agree with Audrey in almost every point that she made. And yes, I agree with Carlos if we want to postpone this. I don't know where we are, if we have to have it filed at a certain time, but if Carlos is willing to work with you, John, to kind of refine this, I'm totally fine with postponing this. And also, I want to agree with Chris. I think it was not a good example to use the Isadora House because it wouldn't be affected by this policy or this situation anyway, because it's a state city-owned property. So to use that as an example, I don't think was very relevant. Thank you.
Okay. So Laura, to that point, what do you have any knowledge about when this is coming before City Council and when we're doing?
I don't, but if we can't finish this, then we just can't. What I can do, if you want to move on to the next item, I can see if I can get Jeff on the phone and see if he knows what the timing is, because it's his boss's motion.
So let's put this on ice for a moment, move on. We also have, so the next one, I got a few chunks done, but I want to make sure that we get to, there's 3 items.
For Taylor, yeah.
Taylor's subcommittee for transportation. I would make a suggestion motion that we move those up to be next. Let's find out if these CISs are pressing and if we have a resolution. So any objection to moving that agenda item around?
Not at all.
Okay, great. So Taylor, why don't you, I'm gonna share.
Oh, I haven't made him a co-host.
Oops. Do you have stuff to share, Taylor?
Yeah, I can share. Might be easiest for me to go through it like that. So
Floor is yours. So now we're going into the
I didn't do that.
Whoop.
Yep, you don't want to do that.
I have 2 Chrome tabs open. Let me look for the other one. Thought I clicked on this. Let's try it. There we go. Okay. All right. So this first one, the La Brea bus lane. So this is just gonna hop into this. This is the presentation that Metro gave. So this is up on the Metro site. So I'll just run through a few slides that I thought were interesting. So just some background on bus ridership. I think we all know this. the average, your typical bus rider in LA is low income. Nearly, over half are above the poverty line. Over half are female. It's primarily people of color. So buses in general, bus lanes are far more efficient for moving people than private or even shared motor vehicles. Bus lanes have a much higher occupancy when they're dedicated rather than in mixed traffic. The bus lanes on Flower when they were dedicated were worked out quite well. And then this is the kind of main, well, so getting to that, so all that is to say that the whole purpose of these bus lanes are to be a more efficient use of city-owned land, a more efficient use of our streets, moving more people, increasing the throughput of the street here of La Brea. And then it's also a social justice action here, where the people who are less likely to own cars, less likely to be able to afford to own cars, less likely to be able to afford gas, depreciation, all the costs that come with being a motorist. Those are going to be the beneficiaries of this planned bus lane configuration. So this is the map here. It's outside of our area. So you can see where my mouse is. This is, that's my, my house is right here. Everything to this side is our area. La Brea is actually the fastest way to take public transportation to Hollywood, to most of Mid-City and to most of West Hollywood. There's not a great bus lane up Crenshaw, or there's not really a good bus route up Crenshaw. It hooks around on Western. Western is another alternative to getting to Hollywood. But La Brea is the most efficient way for people in our area to get to Hollywood and other destinations. So even though it's not in our footprint, it is the closest, it's the most important north-south route for many people who live in our neighborhood, including me. So the proposed bus lane would go from Coliseum to Sunset. This is what they're proposing. And the times, so it would not be all day. It would only be from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. And sorry, this is not, they messed up on this. So it would be in the afternoon and evenings, in the mornings and the evenings during rush hour is when the bus lane would be there. Today, they have what's called a like an anti-gridlock lane. I'm trying to remember the terminology they have on the sides, but it's typically parking. So during off-peak hour, it's a parking area, and then during rush hour, it's a free travel lane. And they would make it so that during the rush hour it would be bus only, but during the off hours, so during the evening and at night, early morning, and then lunchtime, it would be continue to be parking. So that's the background. And here's my very, very short proposed letter of support. So the motion here again would be for, like Laura said last time, that we recommend that the board make this recommendation. I have an example of who I think this should be sent to, and then just 4 sentences here, which is that we enthusiastically support the planned bus lanes on La Brea Avenue. Los Angeles lacks viable north-south routes for non-motorists. This would dramatically improve commutes for residents of our community. And then the suggestion here is that they don't have the break midday for parking. I think this is confusing more than anything else. So I recommend, also midday is a very, very common time for people to be taking the bus. You don't actually see a drop in bus ridership midday the same way that you do in car travel. So my suggestion here is that we encourage Metro to extend the operational hours of the bus lane to include the midday. And then we also hope that Metro will study extending the bus lanes 2 blocks further north to Hollywood Boulevard, where they would connect with other major transit lines. There's a major bus line on Hollywood Boulevard. Then of course there's the red line, or B line as they call it now, on Hollywood Boulevard. That's not in the current plan because the road narrows between Sunset and Hollywood Boulevard. So this is just a suggestion that they take a look at that and see if there's a way to create that connection.
Thanks, Taylor. So this is item number 8. It's in the, not a motion quite yet. There's a recommendation on the floor from Taylor that UNNC support Metro's planned bus lanes on La Brea, which are currently meant to be in mornings and evenings. And any questions or comments? And Chris, your hand is up.
Okay. I support the extension of the bus line. Sorry, just a minute, a little bit. But I disagree about making the parking lane go away during the midday hours, because I utilize La Brea a lot and I know how critical that parking is to many of those small businesses. Many businesses do, sorry, just everybody.
Yeah.
Many businesses just don't have any backside parking on those on the way, and it's lots of mom and pop little businesses up and down. So having those curbside parking for business hours, even though everyone knows by 4 o'clock you better be off that curb, is I think really essential to the commercial viability. But I do think having that as a bus express lane in the rush hours is a very good idea.
Thanks, Chris. Any other comments, questions?
Can you get me some water?
I'm going to second what Chris said. I agree. You know, in theory, traffic goes away some in the middle of the day after and before the rush hours, so buses and cars can get through easier. And though I'm not a big fan of parking myself, I do realize that is still a lifeline for businesses. So I would agree with Chris that it's a little bit punitive on the businesses to do that. So Laura.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we have a motion, but not a second.
Taylor, this is your motion.
I posted Taylor's motion as he presented it, but I never heard a second.
Okay, yeah, I didn't hear it as a motion, but we can say, so let's the letter.
Yeah, I didn't mean to make it as a motion, but I'm happy to make the motion that we that we recommend that the full board support sending this letter to community leaders in support of the La Brea bus lane.
Right.
Okay.
So again, my point is I didn't hear a second, and I'm also hearing that people don't want necessarily to eliminate, to just extend the operational hours.
So there may not be a second. Teresa.
I don't know the protocol here. I would like to second it, but with the amendment that Chris mentioned, and John, you too, that the parking remains available during the afternoon. But I don't know the protocol and the parliamentary way to do that.
Can I undo my motion, make this change?
Sure.
Is that an okay way? Or I just I think we can be unanimous here.
Let's
Sorry if I'm
withdraw.
getting a little out of turn
So
with Robert.
Taylor's withdrawing the original motion. He's going to make a new motion regarding this letter.
Before I make a new motion, are there any? Why don't I hear if there are any? What do you guys think about the second paragraph here before I make a motion?
Well, I want to make a comment if I can, John, which is to agree with Chris's point as a person who actually shops at a couple of different businesses on La Brea. In particular, I'm at Liz's Antique Hardware. They're desperate because they, the parking goes away and have signs everywhere because their customers, at least in that section, which is 6th and La Brea, it's not just getting a ticket during rush hour. It's that your car is towed away and they are out right away to do the towing. So they have this short window of time in the middle of the day where they can do their business. And otherwise, if I go after 4, I have to park 2 blocks away and then also speedily shop because it's 1 hour parking. I mean, in other words, there's restricted parking. So I think it would be detracting from the businesses.
So in the spirit of all that, so what the second paragraph looks like is suggestions for improvement upon the
Right.
metro. So before we make a new motion, Taylor, does anyone else have any comments or suggestions for improvement to this idea that we can discuss and maybe put something forward, not only supportive, but proactive and creative to Metro based on our own experience?
Well, I would ask Taylor, because you had sent me an email because I had asked what's the nexus to UNNC, and you showed me. But is there a direct bus from UNNC area to La Brea that then connects upwards so that our letter can indicate our connection to this?
Yeah, there are a few. So we.
But I think we need to make that point. If we're writing a letter, why are we writing a letter?
Yeah, so that on Jefferson, I think that's the 38 connects. On Adams, that's the 37. On Venice, that's the 33.
33, yes.
Washington has a lane as well. I don't recall what it is.
Well, it's a 68, but it doesn't always go that far west.
Pico has all the sevens and the.
Right. Well, the point is, I would amend the letter. I don't think we have to write that amendment right now, but to indicate that UNNC's significant number of east-west buses do connect to this north-south, and it would help solve the problem of, as you already said, of moving north and south.
Right, and then of
It
course,
just create a nexus in the
Expo.
letter.
The Expo is the other obvious one here too.
Well, yeah.
Or E-line. I have to remember to use the new
Right.
train line name.
So anyway, to your point about the 2 blocks farther north to Hollywood Boulevard, but the road narrows, that given that Hollywood Boulevard has all those, you know, I don't think there's going to be a La Brea widening. Is that correct?
No. So I asked this question the reason I just had it very vague is because this was a common question at both of the presentations that Metro gave, where people are like, why don't you go all the way to Hollywood? And they said, we don't, since the road narrows, they can't do the thing they're doing today where they remove a lane during the rush hour. They would probably have to eliminate parking. And while I'm fine with that, that is a much more controversial activity to do.
Well, it's also, where is the actual station at Hollywood Boulevard and La Brea for a train?
So it's on Highland. The B
Wow.
line goes on Highland, so this is still a couple blocks away.
Well, yeah.
It's like really too bad that this would end on Sunset and you're still not quite to Hollywood and Highland, but you can't change geography. So
Any other input comments? So we have one input to show our relationship to this and why it's important to us. Did you mention that? Which might lead to some policy change, but based on how the connections are for east-west streets. Any other comments? Questions? So Taylor, if there are no more, Taylor, could you paraphrase all that and make a motion to your liking that someone may or may not say?
yes. Do you mind if I add a sentence in right now?
Sure, go. That's fine too.
All right, let's try this. This area of Los Angeles likes viable north-south routes and would dramatically improve commutes for the residents of our community. The UNNC footprint has a number of high-quality bus lines and just call it out, the Metro E-line running east-west and a connection to a north-south bus lane would
Enhance.
enhance our ability to, or would enhance residents' ability to travel through central Los Angeles.
Yeah, when you think about it, our first opportunity is Western, then we don't have any opportunity because none of the other streets really go through that well until La Brea. So,
Right. Yeah, but enhance. It's not the only opportunity, but yeah.
Yeah, there are advocacy groups that are also pushing for bus lanes on Western, but no actual plan from no concrete plan from Metro today.
Okay, so that's the motion. Do we have a second? Chris, I saw our hand, an auctioneer, I'll tell you. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other further discussion? And this is a recommendation to the governing board to write this letter, is that correct? So the motion is to recommend that to the governing board to support this letter to be written to Metro. Okay, seeing no other discussion, I should take a vote. All those in favor, please raise a virtual or real hand on screen. 2, 3, no, I don't have to see everybody here. Okay, see if you, I see most hands up. Okay, lower your hands, please. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Okay, great. On to the next item, which is under transportation as well, which is item number 7. So it's request that UNC support the extension of the Bayona Creek bike path to Venice Boulevard.
Okay, so for background on this, this is a proposal not from any government agency, not from Metro, not from the county. This is totally a proposal that's come up through advocacy organizations. So you can see the organizations here: Culver City Forward, Streets for All, Bayona Creek Renaissance, Bike Culver City. Then SWA is like a landscape design company that made this presentation. So this is purely from, I don't know what you want to call it, grassroots activists. There's no real commitment or proposal from anybody to actually do this. So keep that in mind. Run through really quickly the Bayona Creek bike path. You are probably aware of it. It goes down to Marina Del Rey, cuts through Culver City, goes near Baldwin Hills, right by the dog park that I take my dog to. And then it stops at Jefferson. So where Jefferson turns, where Jefferson's north, and then it turns to the right where it hits National. There's a park right there, and the path stops. The creek keeps on going to Venice, but the bike path stops. So I'm told by these advocacy groups that the original plan was for the bike path to continue all the way to Venice, and they just never did that part of it. So this group actually came up with a very comprehensive plan. They have a whole map of what they think it should do. They have like a whole thing. They spent a lot of time, a bridge over this. I mean, it's really nice. I'll let you guys go through the packet on your own. I don't think we should spend too much time on it because, again, it's not an actual proposal, but it's all a pretty nifty idea. It wouldn't take away any parking or any lanes. It's all on like pretty much vacant and unused land. There's a lot of like dirt frontage roads that they'd be reclaiming. The proposal here is to add parks, which is nice. So it all seems very cool. Here's one of these dirt frontage roads that I mentioned. Obviously there's no funding for it. So it's all a very, very cool idea. So how this relates to us, I'll show you on the map here. Well, yeah, so there's bike path on Jefferson here that's not great. I'll be honest, it does some weird things on Jefferson, but it connects to bike lanes that we have on Jefferson that do connect directly to our footprint. Those bike lanes go down Jefferson to, and then at Harcourt, they switch over to the Expo Exposition Boulevard. So those run through our area, and this would be a direct connection to bike lanes in our area. We also have bike lanes on Venice Boulevard. These are our only major bike lanes. So the only ones I've ever ridden on. Laura has told me that we have bike lanes on 4th Avenue as well, which is interesting. I'll have to check them out one day. But I think this is really cool because it would connect our two areas with bike lanes. Adjacent to us, there's also an interesting new bike lane on Adams Boulevard, and you can see that this would get like oh so very close to connecting to those new bike lanes on Adams Boulevard, although not quite there. So that's the relevance to us. These would connect directly to our two major bike highways, if you will.
Motion?
Yeah, so I wrote this letter. I got a little bit carried away. It's a little long. Should we read this before I do the motion, or
Why don't you summarize each paragraph so we know what it's saying?
So yeah, so we support extending the bike lane. We don't mention any specific proposal. I don't even call out this proposal. I don't mention the groups that are organizing it. Just mentioning that I have them on CC for when we send the letter. But we support extending the bike lane. I mentioned that we have 2 bike lanes in our footprint that would be impacted: Venice Boulevard and Exposition Boulevard. Their connectivity is very limited to other parts of the LA bike network, and an extension of the Ballona Creek would do much to resolve that. And it would also be close to the Adams Boulevard. So I just complain about the way that our bike lanes dead end. The one on Venice dead ends at Vermont. The one on Exposition dead ends at the one on Exposition dead ends at Vermont. The one on Venice dead ends at Arlington. I find that endlessly frustrating. So this is me just getting a chance to complain about bike lane quality. And then I mention here that the Ballona Creek extension, honestly, it's not going to really fix the bike network in a meaningful way, but it'll be a big improvement. This one is a call out that this area is really underused, and it's just this kind of weird area next to the creek that doesn't do anything. It'd be nice to improve it. And then a call out for climate change that it's kind of, I think I personally just like to bike, but a lot of people, there's a lot of concern about getting people out of their cars and into bikes because transportation is the #1 source of greenhouse gas emissions in California. So that's the very long summary.
So I'm going to move, if that was a motion or not, I'm just going to move that we recommend the points and concept presented here to extend the bike lanes, to increase connectivity, to better utilize the resources that we already have as far as bike lanes and having them go through. Support the general idea that using bikes is a sustainable approach that is important for the future. And what else is a big idea in here? Versus just accepting the letter, because there is a lot in here. I think so I would like to keep it into concepts, and maybe the letter, I also recommend that the letter gets cut down to a 1 page. Yeah, so that would be my motion to approve in concept the concepts put forth by Taylor in this letter. And that would be what I would say. Taylor, how do you feel about that?
I agree that this is, I got a little carried away here. It's way too long. I like the approach that I had in the La Brea letter, which was 3 sentences. If this is the appropriate time, I second your motion to recommend that we have the board send a letter expressing these ideas in concept.
That's what I was fishing for. So please second that. Okay, Laura.
Yeah, so I so much prefer just adopting a darn letter because anything else means a whole additional step for executive committee members. Because then if we vote to adopt the letter as written or as rewritten by tomorrow night, then we just do it and you finalize it. We look at it and say, yep, it is, and it goes away. If we adopt things in concept, then somebody has to still write it and then it still has to go to executive committee, which is fine. I'm just, I'm your bureaucrat in chief. So just explaining what happens.
So is there,
And the only change I would do to this letter, because I actually like it, is near the end where it says a bike path with drought resistant plants, solar powered lighting and appropriate street furniture. I would say a bike path with drought resistant plants, comma, a canopy of trees, comma, solar powered lighting and appropriate street furniture would be a huge improvement for the space. But we can approve in concept and then still write it. I'm just saying.
Yeah. And I guess we can approve the letter and can still be edited. It's not word for
Correct.
word. So
Correct, but we don't want to be editing during governing board either. So if that's a problem, we should approve.
I want to accept that as a friendly amendment to my motion to accept the letter with appropriate edits that don't change its content between now and tomorrow. That makes it easier.
You have another hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Colin user 1. Floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. I am a stakeholder and I just wanted to share with you that I understand that these groups have done a lot of outreach, specifically to the community that it's catering to, the bicyclists. But as a resident adjacent to this Biona Creek, I, again, as a resident, have not had a knock at the door, have not had anything through the United States Postal Service, not even a flyer at the door regarding their intentions. Now, wouldn't you think that they'd want to include the community who would be directly involved 24 hours a day by this project? I would appreciate it if you would take this concern in mind, that they include outreach to the actual people. There are it's a residential area adjacent to the Biona Creek, that they would share everybody wants improvement, but to not even come to the people who live here. Thank you for your consideration.
Great, thank you. Thanks for the comments. I would also, I support, it was my motion. I used to bike the Biona Creek bike path frequently, several times a month, and the connectivity is weird going anywhere else. And you have to always have several blocks or a half mile or mile in between stuff. So anything that connects it to major paths to get all the way through, I'm all for. Taylor, I have a question for you. Why not mention the finishthecreek.org presentation or their approach? Seems like that's pretty compelling.
To be candid, I didn't want to mention the specific proposal because the specific proposal is very detailed and very specific, and I'm not sure that, like, when I was reading the specific proposal, a lot of it to me seemed like maybe not feasible, or like I'm just not, I have a hard time knowing whether this proposal from SWA is the right one. So I wanted to talk about it more generally. Let them know that we support the general idea, but not tie ourselves to, this presentation from SWA is the one that we think is the right one.
Could we say we support a proposal similar to, at least gives it somewhere to go look, versus a standalone letter that's kind of out in the universe waiting for a home. I think.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Something like express extending the bike lane from like, and then a comma here that says like,
Similar to the proposal.
yeah, or like such as the one proposed at finishthecreek.org type thing.
Something like
Right.
that.
John, may I?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, Laura.
Right, so I think also maybe part of our ask is, and again, per the comment we just heard, part of the ask would be that cities, I guess, leadership begin the process of both outreach and sourcing funds
Yeah.
for an eventual project. And that could be the end ask, not the beginning ask. That I know it makes your letter longer. I don't agree that on something like this that the letters have to be short. I mean, CISs have to be short, but letters, you always have to remember what is the ask or what are the asks. So we support the idea and concept. We'd like them to start more real community outreach, sourcing funds, because this is clearly really going to be expensive. But I would also say, not necessarily in the letter, but I mean, between us, this is the time to ask for mega millions because there's mega millions being spent on infrastructure from, I mean, there may be monies available for this. So this is, good timing. And not asking for money for 5 more years would be bad timing.
Taylor, now that we're augmenting, I think per the caller, and I think appropriate outreach to
community process of outreach to community members.
Yep.
Or community stakeholders, or because it's more than one city, right? It's Culver City as well. I will tell you, ironically, as a historian, and I'm forgetting the landowner's name, but if you go back to the 1880s and 1890s, a family purchased 1/5 of the Rancho La Cienega. So the westernmost fifth of the Rancho La Cienega, which, as the name implies, is more or less now where La Cienega Boulevard is, but there was no such thing. It was a rancho. But that family then started acquiring other ranchos, and they basically pieced together a patchwork of land that went from there along Bayona Creek all the way out to the ocean. So they owned from more or less what we would think of as Venice and La Cienega, going south, making the turn and going out to the ocean, following Bayona Creek. So this bike path would kind of be following the old land holdings from the 1880s, 90s, up through about 1910, when then the area was subdivided into what we know it today. As a side note, not for the letter.
Dimitri, Chris.
I think we're ready to call the vote and move this along. It sounds like we've made the points that we want to see a little bit of editing on. So I would ask that we bring it forward.
So there's been a few amendments since I made my motion, so I'm going to make the amendment to my motion to accept the comments on the community outreach. And boy, now I'm drawing a blank. What were the other ones we just added?
Sourcing funds.
Sourcing funds, that was the big one, yeah.
Planning, yeah.
Yep. And then to put in some reference to the work that's already been done, if not supporting it part and parcel. Colin, user number 1, your hand's still up. Is that just leftover, or do you want to make a new comment? Take that as a leftover from before. So that said, Taylor, do you accept those?
Absolutely, yes.
Great. So motion to accept the letter in front of us. And significantly compliant to this letter with some edits as necessary, appropriate edits to not change the content. Okay, let's take any further comments. Seeing
Okay,
none.
are we still on the letter in concept or this letter as amended?
This letter as amended with edits that don't change its content. Because it's somewhat unedited at the moment. Okay, so I'm gonna call this vote. So if anyone
Okay,
can.
hang on, let me post it first before you call it. Is that close enough?
Yep. Yep. Okay. Okay, everyone in favor, please raise some kind of hand that you have availability to. Okay. See lots of hands. Okay, if you can lower your hands, and anyone opposed? I see no hands up, so that passes. Excellent. Okay, thank you, Taylor. So the last item on Taylor's docket is, boy, I've lost my agenda again. Here it is. Is item number 9 that requests the UNNC support Safe Streets for All as a city ballot initiative. Taylor.
So, all right, I apologize. This one is going to be the most complicated. So this is the motion. The story behind the motion is that there is I'll start from the very beginning. So I apologize that it'll get connected at the end. The city has a thing called the Mobility Plan 2035. So you guys are at the Planning and Zoning Committee, so you've probably heard this. It's a very long document. I have it up in front of me. It's 202 pages. It's to me, it's very interesting. Talks about what the city hopes its road network looks like by 2035. So some highlights that I'll mention here. We have some streets like Western, Crenshaw, Washington, that the city has in its plan to make as comprehensive transit enhanced streets. This means wider sidewalks, tree canopies, bike lanes, bus lanes, that kind of thing. A couple more specific examples here. I'll jump to a map. These blue lines are supposed to be protected bike lanes. So they have a proposal to have a protected bike lane on MLK. Interestingly, there's a vehicle enhanced network as well. So Olympic Boulevard would be enhanced to support more car traffic. So anyway, very, very comprehensive document that was passed by the city council in August of 2015 by a 12-2 vote. So overwhelming majority voted that they should implement this plan. You may be thinking, though, when you look at this map, like, wow, this is a lot of protected bike lanes. A lot of these roads have been repaved, but what happened to the protected bike lanes that they said would be implemented? Or a great example here is Crenshaw, which is on their enhanced network here. And then you may think, well, didn't this area of Crenshaw get repaved very recently? Like, why does it not look any different than it did before? Oh no, is the city not implementing their mobility plan? And that is the conclusion that a lot of us have come to, is that the city put out this very robust document, but doesn't actually seem to be implementing it in any meaningful way. So an organization called Streets for All, you may recall from the previous item that they were one of the groups supporting the bike lane. They have a plan, or they are trying to get on the ballot this item that would require that whenever the city repave a road, the city check to see what's required or planned on the mobility plan and implement the mobility plan as roads are repaved. So they are planning on getting, they're going to be collecting signatures, they think starting in mid-February. They haven't quite gotten this approved yet for signature gathering, but they think they will. Alternatively, though, the city could simply pass this as a law without any signature gathering. The council could just say, oh, we did this thing back in 2015 and we should actually commit ourselves to implementing it. So that's what this motion of support is that we support that the city that the council simply pass a motion that they will implement the mobility plan that they already passed. So I'll jump to, so, whereas they passed, they will overwhelmingly approved the mobility plan. They have all these goals, Vision Zero, 200 traffic deaths a year, in massive, large increases in injuries, pollution. Therefore, be it resolved that we support the Safe Streets for All ballot initiative, and we ask that the LA City Council create an ordinance that automatically implements the mobility plan 2035 when repaving streets, using the exact language written in the initiative, which would then make the initiative irrelevant. It would already be city law. So that's the motion.
Okay, any questions or comments?
Well, I would second.
Okay.
And then make one little edit at the very end, which would be, oop, I can't see it anymore though, which would be after, therefore be it resolved that the United Neighborhoods Area Council supports the Safe Streets for All ballot initiative, period. In lieu of that, however, we ask the city council, blah, blah, blah. Because it is far more efficient if city council just does it. I mean, why waste money on a ballot initiative? That money could be spent on some of this. Just saying. But anyway, I second the motion to do a resolution, to adopt a resolution supporting Safe Streets for All.
Any other questions or comments?
One minor point of confusion that nobody here has expressed, but you may hear in the future. Council member Buscaino has a similarly named thing that he's trying to put on the ballot, completely unrelated, but it mentions the word. His is called Safe Streets something, but it's not related to transportation or mobility in any way. And so if you hear about another motion with a similar name, it is not, or a similar ballot initiative, it is not this one. This one, that one's about police and policing, and this one is about mobility. Safe Streets, I guess, is just a catchy alliterative thing to say.
Well, how about that then? See if what I just wrote is okay.
Yeah, that is perfect. Yes.
John, are there any hands up? I can't see anything.
I was reading. Does any other questions or comments?
No, I mean, this is so sensible. If you're going to spend money repaving a street, please implement before you spend. I mean, because otherwise you have to spend the money another time. Maybe you ever do it.
Or the worry is that we get to
They never do it.
2035 and then we
Yeah.
look at the plan and go like, oh, cool plan that you never implemented.
Okay, seeing none.
You could just vote.
Motion on the floor, and we have a second by Laura.
So Taylor, I will tell you something about being a committee chair. You never know which ones generate a lot of conversation.
This one I thought was going to be the most
I know.
complicated. Yeah.
Well, I call the question if I can, but I don't know that I can because I'm a co-chair.
Let's call the question.
All right. All in favor?
No, it's me.
Or you should do it. Okay, sorry.
All those in favor of the motion as presented, please raise a hand. Okay, see a hand. hand. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, at least 7. If you could please lower your hands. Anyone opposed? Please raise a hand. Okay, seeing none, it's about seven votes in favor and none opposed, which passes.
Okay.
So
Return.
that,
Yeah,
we,
so John, returning to that CIS, I did speak to Jeff Camp, who works, as you know now, at Council District 2. And that would be the mover of the motion is Paul Krikorian. What he said was that the expectation is that the city attorney is to come back within 30 days. So that was 30 days from January 7, to present a report about what they could do and maybe a draft ordinance. So I think that's ambitious timeline, but if it's also true, we either act now or we not, or we don't.
I say we act now. So I'm going to bring up the proposed, what we had going on for the vacant buildings. Share my screen.
And then sadly, he also had a bit of a, how do I say this nicely? I mean, his attitude, maybe I have the same jaded things. We've seen just too many troubles, is like, well, a mom and pop or, older homeowner, they don't have to provide the, one of the things this is requiring is proactive vacant structure inspection programs and install and maintain fire life safety equipment. And what Jeff is saying is, well, we could consider not making the small mom and pops do that. So I mean, we never even thought they would be required to do that. Let's just say it bluntly. So I think installing fire life safety equipment should be limited to commercial structures, and not even considered, I think, for residential. But anyway, there doesn't. I think we're more sympathetic than the mover of the motion, for good or bad. Now, the other thing on CISs, John, we could adopt a brief CIS and attach a letter, although it's very difficult for us to upload an attached letter. Very difficult, but we can send it to the clerk and hope for the best.
Say there's enough redundancy in the first and third paragraphs. We can probably trim them out. And basically the first paragraph is our position, just generally because how it affects us. And then I think down below, we can start addressing the things that we talked about, which is basically, there's a lot of concern about just securing properties, maintaining them.
Yeah, I just want to be at a place where when we get to governing board, we're not editing again, because it just makes the meetings just go on and on and on.
So.
And we won't die if we can't adopt a community impact statement. Let me also say that.
We spent some time on this. I would say let's do what we can.
Okay.
Can we, what can we do besides wordsmithing over the next 18 minutes as a group? Can we, because we have the comments down. This is one of those in concept things. Can we say this CIS with appropriate edits that don't change its content?
Right. Well, I guess I just still want to understand I don't quite understand Carlos's concern. I mean, in other words, this is not about, as far as I can see, either telling a rental property owner that he or she must stay in the rental business, nor is it about telling a person who's intending to rehabilitate a historic home that even if building and safety is taking forever to issue the permits, you have to have somebody living there that whole time. But it is sort of about securing the properties, because we've seen situations where somebody's, you know, stops paying attention to their wonderful historic home that they planned to renovate, but they don't visit it and they don't realize somebody's squatting. So my concern is to not have the squatters and to not have the demolition by neglect, two different things, because you have squatters while planning to keep the building. You have demolition by neglect when you are happy to lose the building, right? So, but I'm not sure what Carlos's real concern is, or that it's been completely articulated.
I think it was forcing occupancy. That occupancy was we were looking for alternatives too, which I think we provided enough potential.
Well, we could just say that. We do not intend to force occupancy, but rather caretaking and security. I mean, you know, security and caretaking. I don't know.
I think that's clarifying. But incur or enforce caretaking and maintenance.
Maintaining, security. Chris has her hand up.
Yeah, I think where Carlos is coming from is that right now, and for the unforeseen future, you know, if someone is installed and they're there more than 30 days, they have by right now a tenancy. And then there are right now, no legal recourse to then removing a tenant, whether they pay rent or not. So I think that's where Carlos is coming from, and it is a concern.
Well, so, I mean, he could answer for himself. He's here.
Carlos, are we interpreting incorrectly? Letting us interpret.
Yeah, but in the meantime, I don't know that an employee / caretaker can invoke occupancy rights. I don't know that they can't, but I don't know how they do, right?
So I would suggest, just so that we have some points here, all revolving around alternatives, security, maintenance, maybe caretaking, maybe occupancy. And I think if we integrate those upstairs, delete as necessary some of the redundancy. And I'm not sure if these go in this last paragraph or this second paragraph, but I think combining all these, all the words are here. We just have to arrange them in a way that reflects what we were talking about. And I think we got rid of everything that was kind of mandating occupancy. I think we've qualified that already. So I think I would say that we moved to go with this CIS, trimmed it down and edited to fit into the 2000 character format and get on with it, unless there are any other dissents or any other concerns.
So you're saying overnight edit it, noting that we really need to somehow get a draft into the agenda packet during the day tomorrow.
I will do this when we hang up right now.
Okay.
I've been, spent more time on this one than the next one. So.
I mean, I am okay with that. I mean, and yeah, there's no and. I'm okay with this concept.
So I can't remember, did I move this already? I moved that.
Well, we actually did the motion is from the 19th, actually, where we did do a motion authorizing us to prepare this as per the discussion we had on the 19th of January. So,
okay.
But here we are having another discussion, but the motion was I'm trying to remember exactly what the motion was, but it was approving it in concept, but we've made a lot of changes here. So I think we need a new motion.
So I moved to make a recommendation to the governing board to adopt this CIS in response to Council File 22029. More than in concept, but to take what is here and put it into appropriate CIS format.
Okay, I'm losing track. Move to recommend to the governing board that it adopt the CIS regarding CF 220029 with the concepts as discussed at planning and zoning, edited into a proper format. No, that's our motion. Does that sound like our motion?
Sure.
Sure. Is there a second? Oh, wait, moved by John. Is there a second? Okay, Laura's a second. It requires a vote.
Any further discussion? Beat this one up pretty well. Again, we aren't legislating, we're just providing fresh perspectives and ideas as this moves forward.
Right, to perhaps the city attorney, as well as the original mover, Mr. Krikorian.
Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing so I can
So let
see.
me ask you this, actually. In this case, would we want it to be a community impact statement and authorized to send the same words as a letter directly to Krikorian? Or is that not appropriate?
I think wherever it's most effective.
I don't know.
I don't know if I need to send Paul.
Yeah, no, the most effective thing is once we do it is send an email to Jeff and say, hand this to your boss, but after we file it, okay. But we haven't voted.
Yep. So any other questions, comments, observations? Seeing none, let's take a vote. All those in favor of the motion to write this CIS on the subject, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I see 5. Anyone opposed, please lower your hands. Teresa, there's 6. Anyone opposed? Thank you, Teresa. Okay, I see none opposed. That passes. I will clean this up, put all the concerns that we have in there. They're not even concerns, things that we wrote. Clean it up. Great. Okay, so there was one more item on the agenda which I took a stab at, but it's not there. I think it's even more complicated than this one. It's about assisting the development of ADUs for people with fewer means and legalizing current affordable housing, which is often in the
Right. This one seemingly has a longer timeline. The motion was the motion was received and referred to the housing committee, and it's not of the city council. It's not yet scheduled. And once it's scheduled, if they vote it forward, then they're asking for a report. So I think we have a little time.
Yeah, I do too. It's also very complicated as I was writing it. It's like this, and then the original mover of this idea.
But I mean, I checked it when I was checking the status of the other one. So it's just sitting in that sort of limbo.
So I think we should shelve this till next time. I'll work on it some more. I'll try to get in contact with the person who brought it forth, see if she has any input on what we do and say. But we do have a lot of ideas that came up from the last meeting, which we have notes on.
Right.
So we have content, that's seed content for it.
Okay.
So moving on, we're at our final constant agenda item, which is to review any past cases. That gives us the opportunity to talk about anything we've talked about before. Teresa.
Thank you, John. I just wanted to give the committee an update. Donna Jones and the West Adams Avenues have filed an appeal on the Crenshaw Crossing plan that was passed by the City Planning Commission. And we're just, along with, input from CFAC, we're requesting that they take another look at the preserving the Sycamore Grove.
What happened? I didn't get the full rundown of what actually happened in December with CPC. Is anyone there? Anyone, Laura?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was there, and Laura was there, and Laura spoke, but she had some technical difficulties. But they really did not acknowledge that the Sycamore Grove was even part of the consideration. And what I really think happened was that Metro failed to notify in their RFP that the sycamore, which is a protected species for the other people on the call, needed to be preserved and protected during the design and the construction of the development. So, and the planning staff also thought that it was the community's fault for not acknowledging or not noticing this in the beginning, when obviously it couldn't be our responsibility, it was Metro's responsibility, and possibly the developers too, because it was notated in their tree report.
Yep.
Laura, did you want to add more to that?
Yeah, I mean, it was not really notated in the front part of the tree report. It was notated in a dense appendix. I mean, in other words, it wasn't something that was easily found by mere mortal representatives. How even UNNC learned about it was an offhand remark that Jen had made at an earlier meeting. I'm trying to remember. I mean, we had two fall meetings with Crenshaw Crossing. At the first one, Jen made an offhand remark, Jen being the representative for the developer, that they were considering, they're trying to figure out and considering maybe digging up the sycamore trees and trying to move them and hoping they would live. And it's like, in the next day, Teresa was on a call with the CFAC and mentioned it and said, is it even feasible? And it was sort of like, no. So, I mean, so it was just an offhand remark. And at the July public hearing, it not only wasn't mentioned, but on the slides, because I went back and looked, where they had a slide showing what potential environmental impacts there were, it wasn't mentioned. It was not on that slide. Several other things were. So this notion that the community should have known and brought it to the public officials' attention is like, no, that's just not right.
I think regardless of how you think about it, that's total BS. That it's incumbent upon neighborhoods to do their own environmental research and discoveries, and then bring it forth, and then get blamed for not doing that. And as I recall, it was in October. I remember that meeting. I remember sitting in this chair, and it was about they started talking about the tree report, and then we said we wanted a copy of that, and they said, okay, we'll get it to you.
No, they didn't. We got it ourselves.
And then when that came out, it's easy just to scan down and say, da, 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 protected, 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 protected. Da, 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 da. It's like, okay, it's like so glaringly obvious
Right.
that it was there and it wasn't addressed. And they aren't like little skinny trees. They're 75 years old or more. So anyway, so yeah, that's BS. But so
yeah, so at the meeting itself, it was interesting, and I was having severe technology issues, and they were trying to accommodate me. They actually attempted to promote me to panelists, which is extraordinary. But it I was going in and out. My internet was going in and out, and I tried two different internet. It was just karma. That's all I can say, because it doesn't always happen. But the meeting was interesting because then somebody else on the commission itself brought up that they didn't see anywhere on the plans any public bathrooms. And there was a good 20-minute conversation about the need for public, and I feel that that's just stupidity. There ought to be public bathrooms in a plaza where two trains meet. It does not make any sense not to have restroom facilities, but they spend a whole lot of time on that, no time on the trees, basically. So That's that. I mean, John, you had, I think, indicated that you were on one of the many responders to the RFP. So you were on one of the teams.
We came in second.
And that, but what I'm saying is, didn't you guys knew there were protected trees, right? But
We
how
not
did
only-
you know?
Because it was obvious, we took site walks and we were 9 months with community outreach. And our plan preserved the trees, but anyway, I've been trying to abstain from that because
Well, it's over. We've already voted here.
it's not really a conflict of interest. I just didn't want to go there. It's, be all sour grapey about it. But yes, it was known. And it was part of so Metro knew about them because it was part of our other proposals, including ours. So.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Give you an update. Thank you very much, John.
Yeah.
Anyway, so any other comments on past items?
Follow up to.
If not, it's 8:59.
Look at how perfect.
So thanks, everybody. We'll see you in a couple of weeks and we'll see you tomorrow night.
So
And-
yeah, John, I have to ask, we can adjourn the meeting and then I have to ask you something.
Let's adjourn the meeting so we can stop recording. I adjourn.